You sit down, ready to study for hours, but 30 minutes in, your brain feels absolutely fried. You keep checking the clock, you feel restless, and worst of all, you're not even absorbing anything at this point. But what if I told you that studying for long hours isn't necessarily about forcing yourself to sit down for longer, rather, it's about studying smarter? And today I'll show you exactly how to study for these long hours without burning out. But before we do get into that, we do only have a small percentage of you who are subscribed to the channel. So if you do enjoy and relate to content like this, I really recommend hitting that subscribe button. Let's get into the video. You sit down, ready to study for hours, and you tell yourself that this time I'll get everything done. But 30 minutes in, bam, your brain is literally fried. You check your phone, you stare at your notes, and the sudden urge to do literally anything else takes over. Sound familiar? Well, that's because you're studying wrong. Most people think that they need to push through for hours straight when they study. But here's the truth. Your brain isn't wired for these long marathons. It's wired for small sprints. And let me show you how to hack your brain and study for long hours without burning out. Now see, there's a reason why top performers, from Olympic athletes to CEOs, all of them work in bursts rather than working nonstop. Studies show that your focus peaks around the 45 to 50-minute mark, and after that, your brain gets overloaded with information and from your productivity drops. But here's the fix. Study for 50 minutes, then take a 10-minute break. And this isn't just a suggestion, it's a science-based fact. But here's the catch. The way you take a break really matters in this routine. Scrolling on your phone, that's a bad idea. You're just frying your brain even more at that point. The best way to do it is walking around, stretching, and drinking some water. That's perfect. It recharges your energy so you can go again to the short bursts of studying. Here's another fun trick that I really recommend to all of my students. Treat studying like a game. Before you start, ask yourself, can I just stay laser focused for 50 minutes? And set a timer and make it a challenge. Every completed session would equal 1 point. When you hit 5 points, reward yourself with a small treat. This simple trick makes studying less of a chore and more of a potential challenge that you really want to accomplish. Have you ever noticed that the first 10 minutes of studying feel the hardest? Well, that's normal. Your brain, like your physique, is literally just warming up. The solution? Start with something that's really easy. Read over your notes, rewrite some points, or just organize your desk. This low-effort task eases your brain in, making it easier to lock in for the rest of the session. So let's recap. Use the 50-10 rule, where you're working with your brain and not against it. Then you need to gamify your focus, where you make studying feel like a win. Then you need to warm up, where you don't force your focus, but rather you ease into it. And once you start using the sprint and recharge strategy, as I like to call it, studying for long hours won't feel painful. Rather, you'll start feeling effortless. And now, once you've accomplished this, let's move on to the next hack, where we talk about how your environment secretly destroys your focus. So you've set your study plan, you've got your sprint sessions ready, but 10 minutes in, you start feeling sluggish. Your focus is slipping, and you try harder, but literally nothing works. But what if I told you that the problem isn't you, but your environment? Most people don't realize this, but your study space really affects your brain more than you think. If your environment is working against you, even the best study techniques won't help you. So let's fix it. Here are 3 environmental hacks that will help you study longer and stay mentally sharp. Have you ever noticed how you feel sleepier when you study in dim lighting? Well, that's because your brain is wired to associate darkness with sleep. And the fix? Use a bright white light while studying. Ideally, use an LED or daylight bulbs. If you study in the evening, get a desk lamp with cool, toned lighting. It helps keep your brain awake and alert. A bonus tip, if you really need to wake up, go outside for 2 minutes. Natural light will trigger your brain's alertness mode almost instantly. Here's a weird fact. Have you ever wondered why classrooms and offices are always a little cold? It's not random. Studies show that cooler temperatures help keep your brain focused and stay sharp. If you turn the temperatures down too much though, then you start to get uncomfortable and distracted. And if you turn them up too warm, then you start getting lazy and drowsy. The sweet spot is between 18 to 22 degrees Celsius for room temperature. And for my American viewers, you can convert that to Fahrenheit. So if you're struggling to stay awake while studying, try lowering the room temperature. It might just be one of your secret weapons. Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, you just can't focus? Well, here's a trick. Change your location. Your brain loves novelty. If you stay in one place for too long, your mind gets too comfortable and starts to lose focus. Try this. Every few hours, try to switch your study spots, from a study desk to a library to a coffee shop, and finally back home. Even a small change like moving to another chair will refresh your focus. And if you can't move, then rearrange your space. Tidy up your desk, add a plant, face a different direction. All of these tiny changes trick your brain into thinking that all of this is a fresh start, and it'll help you focus better. So here's your environmental checklist to studying for long hours. Better lighting equals staying awake and alert. Cooler temperatures equals keeping your brain sharp and mental focus strong. And finally, changing location equals instant focus reset. So now that your environment is optimized as well, let's talk about how to train your brain to handle long study sessions without mental fatigue. So you sit down, ready to study for hours, but within minutes, your brain starts to feel fried. You start daydreaming, zoning out, or worst of all, you tell yourself, I'll just check my phone for a second, and suddenly 30 minutes are gone. Sound familiar? Well, that's because your brain is not trained for endurance. But just like a muscle, you can train it up so that studying for long hours feels easy. And here's the 3-step formula to increase your mental endurance and focus without feeling drained. Ever notice that the first 10 minutes of studying feel the hardest? Well, that's normal. As I was talking about before, your brain, literally like your physique, is just warming up. Think about working out. You wouldn't just straight away jump into lifting heavy weights, would you? You'd start with light weights, ease in, and studying is the same thing. The solution is to start with something easy. Read over your notes, rewrite your points, organize your desk. This is a low effort task that sends a signal to your brain that we're starting now, and it makes things 10 times easier, especially for you to lock in for the rest of your long study session. Most people also quit long study sessions because their brain hits a wall, and it's that moment where you feel like you just can't focus anymore. But here's a pro tip. That wall, it's a mental wall, not a physical wall, and you can train yourself to push past it. Here's how. When you feel like stopping yourself, tell yourself, just 10 more minutes. That simple trick just extends your focus over time, and the more you do it, the longer you'll be able to study without feeling exhausted. It's like building stamina. If you've ever done cardio, you know what I'm talking about. At first, running for 10 minutes feels impossible, but if you do it daily, you'll soon hit 30 minutes and it'll start feeling very easy. And your brain works in the exact same way. Here's another big mistake that people make. Passive reading. It completely makes your brain shut down. The fix is to switch to active recall. Instead of just reading, test yourself constantly. Ask yourself questions. What did I just read? Teach it out loud. Pretend that you're explaining what you studied to a 5-year-old. And write key points from your memory. This effort keeps your brain engaged instead of having it zone out. A bonus tip that I can give you here is to use the right music. Lo-fi beats or white noise help you stay in the zone. But avoid music with lyrics because it gets too distracting. I personally listen to lo-fi beats when I work, whether it's studying or just working on something else. Especially when I'm writing a script for my YouTube video, I love to listen to lo-fi beats, and you can find so many of them all over YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music, anything. So let's recap. Warm up first because you want to ease your brain in and you don't want to force anything. Break the mental wall because you want to train your endurance like a muscle. And finally, use active recall where you're keeping your brain engaged and not keeping it passive. If you use all of these tricks, then studying for long hours won't feel draining and it'll start feeling effortless. And that, my friends, is how you study for long hours without completely turning into a zombie. Sprint like you're in a study Olympics, set your environment like you're designing a productivity lab, and train your brain like it's going to the gym. Now tell me, what's the longest study session that you've ever done? And be honest, did it involve actual studying or just staring at your notes while you contemplate life? Drop it in the comments. I really want to read all of your responses. And if this video helped, hit that like button. Not for me, but for all the students out there who really need it. And if you don't subscribe, well, I can't force you, but I'm going to judge you silently. But I'll see you in the next one.